Kia ora and welcome to 5 Minutes with the FMA. I'm Heidi Norman. Today we're talking about the Financial Markets Authority's Access to Financial Advice Review, and I'm joined by the FMA's Head of Financial Advice, Romil Ghelani. Welcome, Romil. What's the background to this review? How did it get started?
Thank you, Heidi. So if I start from the very beginning, the regulatory framework for financial advice began in March 2021 with a 2-year transitional period for getting firms licensed to give advice, and then came into full effect in March 2023. So two of the additional purposes of the regulations was to ensure the availability of financial advice and the quality of financial advice. And so these two things, the availability and quality, are really the cornerstones of the regulatory regime for financial advice. And our view is that quality and accessibility of advice are both complementary, but can also have trade-offs. And so we've always considered the availability of financial advice in a sense when setting our license standard conditions, when publishing guidance to financial advisors over the past few years, and even in our monitoring reviews and examinations. But now is the time to further enhance our understanding of the availability of financial advice for New Zealanders, including where consumers go to get advice in order to inform our work as a conduct regulator. So our focus of this review is really on the challenges and opportunities related to accessing financial advice. And one thing I'll mention is that in my many conversations I've had with advisors in my regulatory role, they all want to give more financial advice, which shouldn't be surprising to anyone. You become a financial advisor to give advice and to help people. And this review has that ethos front and center. So part of this is really about how regulation continues to uplift and underpin the prosperity of the industry. And that is why we want to bring the industry along the journey with us. That is why we're seeking feedback before we commence this work.
And what is it exactly that you're seeking feedback on?
Yeah, thanks. There's two key areas we're seeking feedback on. One is we'd like to know what people think of the 4 focus areas that we've chosen in the proposed terms of reference. So the question is, do we have those topics right? And number 2 is, are there any sources of information that advisors or the wider ecosystem can provide us in terms of giving us insight into the challenges and opportunities for the availability of financial advice? Because any observations we draw needs to be based on good information. And a key part of that is making sure we're asking the right questions and talking to the right people before we commence the next phase of the review, which is what I'm calling the fieldwork phase.
So can we define some of the terms here? What do we mean when we say availability and access to financial advice?
So when we talk about availability and access, we broadly mean the availability of regulated financial advice. So that's those that are licensed and qualified to give advice under the Financial Markets Conduct Act, and that advice is accessible to New Zealand consumers. However, as part of this review, in order to understand that, we need to get a broader view of what consumers may consider advice and look at other sources of information that people may use to make financial decisions about their well-being. So this can include things like social media, friends and family, and other organizations that may not hold a FAP license.
And tell me more about the focus areas that you're looking for feedback on. The first one is listed as consumer demographics and preferences. What is it that you're looking for here?
Yeah, so look, seeking financial advice can feel quite daunting to many Kiwis. And so the first proposed topic of this review is understanding some of the behaviors that may propel people to seek advice, and maybe the behaviors that act as a barrier to seeking advice as well. Because on the other end of this, it's about seeing what we can do to demystify advice for consumers and build their confidence in the relevance of having a financial advisor in their lives. It's particularly important that all Kiwis can access simple and affordable advice about everyday products such as KiwiSaver. So we also want to explore the perception that financial advice is only helpful for those who invest in complicated products or have a large sum to invest. We also want to understand in this topic what demographic factors might influence the desire and ability to access regulated financial advice, which may also include groups of consumers who may be experiencing barriers around affordability or financial literacy as well.
And you list innovation and digital advice as areas of focus. Why is that?
Yeah, so that's the second proposed topic. So one of the changes brought about by the financial advice reforms was allowing advice to be provided through digital advice services, whereas previously, before the reforms, it can only be provided by a natural person. And this is to promote innovation and flexibility, which is one of the additional purposes under the Financial Markets Conduct Act. And our regulatory returns, which is a return that we ask all financial advice providers to complete every year, shows that only 3% of licensed FABs actually provide a digi-advice service. And so for us, it's exploring innovation in the financial advice industry, including exploring why innovation may be subdued, because we think more innovation in the financial advice sector will help increase access to advice.
Mm. Okay. And I can see that financial advice business models is included here as well. What are you hoping to find out there?
Yeah, so we would like to understand how different financial advice business models, or in other words, the different channels in which advice can be given and the revenue models that come with that may impact access to financial advice. And part of this will actually be tapping into some of the smaller players and the new firms entering the industry to find out their experiences entering and any barriers that they may have experienced. At the same time, just to cover business models more generally, understanding business models is really important as a risk-based conduct regulator. And so our review of FAP business models is really going to understand access, but also help us understand risks to conduct, to client care, and to advice quality.
And lastly, I can see here that you've listed ease of provision of regulated financial advice. How does that look to you?
Yeah, so ease of provision, all ease of provision really means for the audience is how regulation plays a role in increasing access. So while the previous three topics was about the consumer lens, innovation, and business models, ease of provision is really FMA's bread and butter. And the principles-based nature of the financial advice regulatory regime means that advisors are able to offer a wide range of services and that advisors have flexibility in deciding how they want to go about compliance. But what we're seeing in the market is still some instances where advisors are unsure about how to meet their regulatory obligations. And the flexibility is quite useful, but it can also create some uncertainty as well. And this includes the removal of a couple of old terms before the reforms came into effect, which is class versus personalized advice. And so we're going to explore those issues through the ease of provision, including seeing where highly conservative compliance practices may be acting as a barrier to giving advice. And look, the output of all this in this last proposed topic is we most likely foresee additional guidance being given on where there might be some areas of uncertainty where we can provide advisors more confidence in what services they're able to provide, including simplified advice.
Mm. Okay, that sounds really great. If people want more information, where can they go?
Yeah, so do read the full draft terms of reference. It's only 5 pages long. It's on our website at www.fma.govt.nz. Please do send in your thoughts. We welcome all feedback. We have a dedicated channel on our website for you to send us that feedback, and we're very keen to hear from all of you and from a wide range of people. So thank you.
Thanks so much for your time today, Romil. Much appreciated. And that's all we've got time for today on 5 Minutes with the FMA. See you next time.